that was always topic of conversation of how Christianity went through a large period in its history where they were anti-Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what the Christians now have to fix is the Crusades and the Christians of the time being anti-Semitic. Like,
Yeah.
So let's start with the Lutherans, who obviously get their name from Martin Luther. 4 years after Luther published his 95 Theses, the Catholic Church declared him to be a heretic and put a ban on sharing his ideas. Those ideas can be summed up with the phrases sola fide and sola scriptura.
so that's triggering something that I remember. I want to make sure that I'm understanding it properly. The main idea of Protestants splitting or forming from Catholicism was because
He nailed those to the wall door.
but it was because any man can read in the Bible,
No.
not just the priest.
No, you're conflating the Waldensians with Martin Luther.
Okay.
So that was one of his points.
Martin Luther's. Okay.
But it was not the nail in the coffin.
Okay. So it was basically here's a point that I don't agree with you on.
He had 95 of them. And they were bullet pointed and listed in accordance to their importance.
I feel like I would have learned more about Martin Luther in school.
I feel like you and Martin Luther would be really good friends.
Cool.
Because he also enjoyed bullet pointed lists.
I love bullet pointed lists. Fun fact, my now husband, when we first met, I told him, just heads up, I really love spreadsheets. I shit you not.
You want to see my spreadsheets?
You guys want to see the spreadsheet I've made for this new podcast venture? It's so sexy. It is such a sexy.
It's a very nice spreadsheet. Very sexy. I will admit it's very nice.
Okay, so the Waldensians,
that was their biggest shtick, and they actually predate Martin Luther.
So that's what he's okay. So that's what he means by
yes.
That was a point of Martin Luther.
That was a point he made.
But you can argue that Protestant style faith existed before Martin Luther because of the Waldensians in 1173.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And yeah, we'll just let him talk.
Okay. So this, like I said, this is not something that I learned in school. Like I think I should have.
Yeah. Well, I'm
not saying we didn't talk about it, but
I think if you have an entire course dedicated to Bible, I feel like this should be included in that course, and it definitely was
not.
I do remember them talking about it, but it was like this big.
Yeah, I remember it being there. I remember a question or two on a test.
Yeah,
but it was just glossed over. So this is going to be my first.
So I'm
really understanding.
I got a lot of this because a portion of my dad's family is Lutheran, and there was a lot of these kinds of debates happening at the dinner table of why is X wrong and Z right, and them throwing terms around that I didn't fully understand until I went and researched it for myself. Like my dad stressing so hard by faith alone, not understanding why he would just say that one line to my grandmother angrily. Like what the significance of that was, going back and researching it for myself and going, there's a whole pot over here that we need to talk about. But again, if they show you all of this, then it shows you that
men were involved.
And the Evangelical Church was not like a straight descendant of the Pauline Church.
Right.
And the thing is, no, that's a completely different bunny trail. I don't want to go there yet.
Sola fide means by faith alone. You see, Luther was angry that certain Catholic priests were abusing something called indulgences. Basically, if you or a relative had committed a bad sin, you could just pay money to the church and get a special certificate that said, if you do such and such a good deed, your punishment in the afterlife will be reduced. Protestants argue that the only thing that makes a person right with God is having faith in Jesus, not doing good works. Sola scriptura means by scripture alone. According to Protestants, the Bible is the ultimate authority, not the Pope or the Church or anyone else.
Okay. So my question so far with what we've watched is that this whole sola fide, by faith alone, is instead of paying a priest. What was discussed in the Nicene Creed regarding that?
I don't believe that was discussed.
Okay.
But it would have been a fairly, like, that would have been the bunny trail that I went down next. Is that would have been a fairly common feature of most religions that Christianity would have been interacting with. That would have been part of that handshake with the pagan religions.
The paying for your...
Not really, yeah, the I did something to piss this god off, so let me pay something or offer something to soothe my relationship with this god.
Okay.
That would have been part of that cultural handshake between the church and pagan religions it was surrounded by. And it was not backed up by anything Paul or Jesus said, and so Martin Luther had a bone or two to pick with it.
Okay. But it was... Okay.
Yeah.
My brain's trying to put together something that's not necessarily relevant to the video.
Fine.
But, or to the podcast. So we started with the Pauline Church. And the Pauline Church
went through several councils
and basically spat out
The
Catholicism and
Orthodox.
an Orthodox.
Yes.
Okay. Which then created the hierarchy of popes and bishops. And
which
everything.
Also would be part of that cultural handshake with pagan religions.
But wasn't necessarily a structure set out in the Nicene Creed.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so Protestantism
does not
at this time is kind of like, whoa, y'all took this Nicene Creed, basically went a different direction with it, and I don't think y'all are doing it right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So what happened was that some states adopted Luther's ideas and some did not, starting around 1521. Now, one thing I want to make clear is that the new Protestant states did not shut down all the Catholic churches and open new Lutheran ones. Priests and churches that were previously Catholic simply became Lutheran, and more reforms and changes were implemented over time. Two of the earliest German states to embrace Lutheranism were Saxony and Hesse. They eventually formed a military alliance called the Schmalkaldic League to defend themselves against the Catholic Emperor.
Hold on.
So this is where...
wait.
Okay.
We're now making religious militaries?
Yes. This is where...
That took a...
Well...
We're way over there now.
It's kind of been happening. Like, this is where the history of the church and the history of the Western world becomes so deeply entrenched in each other and enmeshed in each other that you can't really talk about one without talking about the other. Like,
because as part of I am the leader of this land, is I am the leader of your religion.
Becomes
starts.
Yeah, it kind of gets muddied. I want to say back in the Great Schism between Catholic and Orthodox, around the 1100s.
Okay.
And that's where the muddying starts. And then by the time the 1500s roll around, it's so deeply enmeshed in each other that, like, separating who's actually running the country, the Pope or the King, becomes
still a debate.
A nuanced political debate. Like, I'm sure he'll get into it because he's going to talk about it, the Anglicized Christian church, which is where the King of England said, yeah, I'm not going to listen to the Pope anymore. Well, prior to that, the King of England was under the Pope's control. So then it's who's in control of this country, the Pope or the King of England? And that's a nuanced conversation.
It is, because I'm imagining from a regular person's perspective, a regular citizen, I guess.
Yeah.
You need guidance in your life. And that is going to mean the physically and spiritually. And if you're used to it being the same person, because that makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah, I can see that being an issue.
it becomes this power struggle that it is constantly going back and forth. Who's in control of this? And like the Lutheran Church, you could phrase it in a way that the Lutheran Church gave the German states an out from underneath the Pope.
king? Oh, of the Pope.
So if I make Lutheran that doesn't believe in the papacy because it's by scripture alone, then I no longer have to acknowledge the Pope as over me.
Which could then mean physically as well.
Yeah.
Like governmental.
Exactly. So it gives them more control over their state if they become Lutheran. It's one way of looking at it. There's more nuance to it. There's more things happening on the ground. But from like a bird's eye perspective, you can look at it that way. As
that is so interesting.
The reason why Lutheranism was readily accepted by certain princes was because it allowed them an out from underneath the Pope.
Now, what at that time he said was the Holy Roman Empire.
Yes.
So who was the governmental lead as well?
So there was a dual situation where there was the Holy Roman Emperor,
who was not the Pope,
who was like a king, who was not the Pope. And then you had the Pope, and yeah, they went back and forth for a good 400 years about who's actually in control here. And it's one of the little r reasons why crusades would happen, is that whole argument between the emperor and the Pope and who actually runs this country.
Power.
Yeah.
Power.
It's all about power.
It's all about power.
It's all about power.
Now, back to the Lutherans in Germany. During World War II, the majority of the Prussian churches supported the Nazis, due in large part to a movement known simply as German Christians. Martin Luther himself had been very anti-Semitic, so it wasn't hard for the German Christians to use his writings to support their cause. However, not all Lutherans in Germany were pro-Nazi. The Lutherans who opposed Hitler, led by Dietrich Bonhoeffer and others, eventually broke away and formed the Confessing Church, although Bonhoeffer himself was eventually captured and sent to a concentration camp, where he was later executed shortly before the end of the war. After the war, the Prussian church was reunited and purged of Nazi supporters.
So I missed why did the Nazi Allied Church split off? Just because
we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay. He's got it.
Yeah, he hasn't talked to it yet.
Okay.
He hasn't talked to us about the split yet. No, I did not know. I mean, I guess it makes sense that Martin Luther would be anti-Semitic given the time frame and the location. That makes sense, but I did not. And I always knew there was a Nazi Allied Church in World War II, and I always knew that it presented opportunities for nationalism through the religion itself. I did not realize that's how those opportunities were presented.
So with my family going from the non-denominational / Assemblies of God to cult,
yeah,
then my parents kind of took a harsh turn towards Judaism, Messianic, Gentile-loving Jews.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what bubble they reside in, what they personally think they reside in, I guess. And so that was always topic of conversation of how Christianity went through a large period in its history where they were anti-Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what the Christians now have to fix, is the Crusades. And the Christians of the time being anti-Semitic. That was, I did know that. I didn't know specifically any of this stuff, but that was not impression.
Idea.
But that was the idea I was given. Was that for some reason, well, not for some reason, that's a different conversation of why, but that they went through a period of time very anti-Jew.
It was very much dismissed in my family. There was four reasons for some reasons that will be obvious to people who know me and my family, it was very quickly like swatted away the whole idea of Christians being anti-Semitic. Like we glazed over that as fast as we could. Every single chance, every single question I had about it was just, it was a thing that happened and we don't talk about it anymore. And if I wanted more information about how like the Christian church was involved in Nazi Germany, I was met with a lot of hesitation and a lot of, why are you looking up that? Why are you looking into that?
Yeah.
Like,
I hear you.
and of course that just made me dive deeper into it.
Oh yeah. we did have the unique aspect of bringing that whole Judaism aspect when I was a teenager into our family for reasons that are important in this specific podcast. Because it's a whole long story. But so that it kind of came with it, especially when my parents did leave for Israel for 11 years. And their main goal was to repair relationships from Christians and Jews. So
it was a big topic.
It was a topic. It had to be discussed, and it got lumped in the, well, humans make mistakes. Yeah. Do they now? Do they now? So I don't disagree. Of course,
a big honking mistake.
Of course, humans make mistakes. Of course.
Yeah. They also make mistakes when they're writing.
It's just, it then creates a can of worms that is an uncomfortable conversation of, well, if humans can make these mistakes,
what other mistakes?
What other mistakes did they use? Or how do we know that we're not making a mistake? If we can be like, oh, well, they made a mistake. Well, who knows? We're not the ones making the mistake.
Yeah.
So.
And they didn't know they were making mistakes. So how am I supposed to know I'm not making a mistake?
Yeah.
Like,
they thought they were doing what's right. So what's different
about me thinking I'm doing what's right? And
it's
then my mom would
slavery. It was the same concept.
Like my parents would just, well, the road to hell is paved in good intentions, and then it's like, well, that's terrifying.
Yeah,
that's absolutely terrifying to think through.
That's not helpful.
Like, okay, so should I not have good intentions?
Should be a terrible person. So confused.
So confused. It's not helping.